they become more popular, and then they could become eventually competition to WWE itself. So you would want to make sure that, if they were on the WWE network, you wouldn't want them to become too big for you to handle.
Right.
And one thing I just want to add to that is when we start talking about that 3 to 4 million user goal, maybe Brandon has a bit more information on how they came to this number, but I feel like that is nitro math, where people within the wrestling business said, okay, well, now that WCW's gone, technically the 2 to 3 million people that were watching Nitro will shift over to WWE, and the ratings will be amazing. And that really didn't happen. And when we start talking from a technological standpoint, when USA, again, well, I shouldn't say when, but rather if and when, anything can happen, as they always say. But if or when it comes a day where USA and WWE part ways, the people that are currently watching Raw on USA will not necessarily automatically migrate over to the network because there may be infrastructure challenges that they have to face. A lot of people still using dial-up here in America. A lot of people still do not have a good communication system within their hometown and within their neighborhood to support something like the WWE Network, to support Netflix, to support FloSlam and all these other streaming services. So it's not necessarily going to be a nice clean cut as we're thinking. And also you factor in, again, people are already watching USA because it's free. So there still is that segment out there of people who enjoy Raw, enjoy SmackDown, and they may use their buddy's account to watch the network here and there, if not for the entire year. And so when you begin factoring all that, it would be really interesting to see the amount of people that truly move over and how far the number goes up. But do I believe that it will be by 1 million or by 2 million with the cancellation, if you will, of Raw and SmackDown from the USA brand, from Viacom? I don't believe it would go that high.
And
so as Tom was talking about, where do they get this 3 to 4 million subscriber goal from? It's from this WWE consumer survey that they did in June 2012, which I'm pulling up a 2014 WWE investor survey, like PowerPoint slideshow. These are the kind of things that I do. I collect these things. But it shows on one of the slides that there's 116 million U.S. homes with TVs, and supposedly about 53% of them are WWE affinity households. So that's 62 million homes, in just in the U.S. And 13 million of those affinity homes, 13 million of them have at least one passionate fan in them. 21 million have a lapsed fan, and 28 million have a casual fan. So anyway, you look at the passionate fans, there's 13 million of those. They figure, well, we can get at least 3 to 4 million of those, which who knows what they're defining as a passionate fan. Nobody that I know has seen what the survey, said and what it asked for. And who knows how they came to this conclusion, but it does seem ridiculous. That there was,
it seems like
that the half of America is a WWE fan of some sort,
which is absurd. Yeah, it sort of seems absurd how they got to 62 million lapsed fans. I'm like, there were 7 million people watching Raw at the peak of its powers. How did you get to 62 million? Brandon, you can explain this?
We don't know. We don't know what the survey looked like. It's I don't know. I would love to see it.
And not only that, but we're not really sure who interpreted the survey. So this might have been a situation where they just handed it off to their marketing team. And again, marketing is going to market. And so they probably looked at the numbers and said, oh, well, technically, if we look at it this way, half of America loves us. Great. And that's how they got to 4 million. So I definitely believe there was some weird math going on, so to speak. It would be really interesting to see how internally they came to those calculations. Again, Brandon covered the information that was delivered, but again, how was it digested and interpreted internally to come at such a amazing number to just hear it out?
I remember in the very early days of the WWE Network when people, had no data to go on, that there was even higher figures. I think a business investor, Laura Martin, I think came up with the figure of 6 million. And I think a lot of the maths is based on the success of Netflix. So Netflix has tens of millions of subscribers, I would imagine. And so they look at Netflix's number and think if WWE can get just a small percentage of that pie, so to speak, then 3 to 4 million is feasible.
Yeah, Netflix is at almost 100 million subscribers now.
Yeah, so 3 to 4 million is just 3 to 4% of what Netflix's business does. So I think that plays a part in it too. And I'm personally of the belief that if WWE stays a healthy company and they expand their international popularity and broadband becomes cheaper internationally, that there will become a day when they have 3 million subscribers. But it's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be next year or 2 years down the line. That could be 10 or 20 years down the line.
Right. Do you feel like WWE is going to have a problem negotiating TV rights fees in 2019 when the contract's up because of the whole ESPN thing, because of various things that have been happening in the TV industry that have caused TV rights to be the cause of layoffs, be the cause of all this hoopla?
Well, I haven't heard any news yet that some sports league, or some live sports entity has gotten a really disappointing, TV rights deal, or that their TV rights deal from, last time or this time is lower than it was last time. Until I start hearing that, or I think UFC will have to renegotiate their deal before WWE does, and then if that's true, I'm pretty sure it is. Then that'll be a signal of how WWE is going to do. And I know we can talk all day about how the TV ratings are down, but WWE still ranks well among other programming on its night. It's somewhere between number 1 and number 7 or so for both Raw and SmackDown on cable. So until I see somebody start to get some bad deals and the sports TV rights bubble truly start to burst, I would lean optimistic that WWE will get an increase in its TV rights fees in its next deal.
I think so as well, especially when you take a look at a company like ESPN, which is losing a lot of viewers. Ratings are down across the board. They're losing a lot of viewers, a lot of subscribers. And a company like that will always want to have someone like WWE. And so if that is the case, let's just say USA again and WWE were not to renegotiate, were not to come to terms, moving over to ESPN, I'm sure they would overpay for WWE just to gain that viewership over to that network to really help it out. So I think there's situations where overall, I think if you assess WWE as itself, some channels may not necessarily need it. Some companies may not need it. It would look nice in the portfolio. But then again, there's companies like ESPN that WWE coming over would be a godsend.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues is, can we be confident of WWE management in terms of negotiation that they can play off, several companies and get a great deal for themselves? And WWE's track record is not really great in that regard. They obviously did very well during the Attitude Era when they moved from Viacom to Spike, but then 5 years later, because they showed their hand too much, and everyone knew that they wanted to move from USA back to USA because they weren't happy with the Spike TV deal. They ended up with a worse deal than they had 5 years earlier, that they struck 5 years earlier. And the last time around, negotiations didn't seem to be handled that well. I mean, they did end up getting a better deal with NBC Universal, but it was about at the bottom of expectations of what they could anticipate in terms of a TV rights fees increases.
Yeah, and this is where my concern comes in. They've showed their hands the past couple of times, and what makes you think they're not going to show their hand again? And say, maybe an ESPN really, really wants WWE, and they take less just to be on ESPN. Thoughts?
I think the issue with WWE last time was that they were going into other networks with too high. They were expecting too much from other networks. And so in the end, they couldn't get anyone to nibble, on showing much interest in WWE programming other than USA Network, who were very happy to keep them. And I think this is one of the issues, is that ESPN may be interested, but at the right price. And is that $100 million a year? Is that $200 million a year? Is that $250 million a year? If they go into aggressive again, particularly with their TV ratings falling, they could be in for a rough time. And I think one of the issues at the moment is that with their TV ratings falling faster than the USA Network, there is always the risk that USA may feel, well, we're paying so much money for WWE, and they may feel, well, wrestling isn't the hot thing anymore. Maybe we should go into a completely different direction, and we've got, say, $250 million a year free to spend on another sport or on new programming. So, I mean, I think the most likely thing is that WWE ends up with on USA Network still for a slightly bigger deal, but it's not 100% sure thing.
Right. Let's go into the business of live events. How have gates been in WWE over the past few years? In terms of live
attendance, live attendance revenue has been up more often than not year over year as ticket prices have increased. But meanwhile, attendance has been pretty much flat. That's over the last few years, or really going back to at least 2008 or so. What we saw at the end of Q1, though, is that their total attendance is about 546,000, which was the highest going back to at least 2008, and I don't know how much further back than that. But so a lot of that was because of Royal Rumble being run at the Alamo Dome. But a lot of that is because they're running more shows than ever. They're running, this is the first whole quarter where we had, both Raw and SmackDown having their own separate house shows for the whole quarter. And I don't have it in front of me, but they ran something like 90 events in the quarter, whereas I think in the last year quarter they ran about 70 or 75.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different of a business model than what they've been running in the past.